this might be a tough decision right now.
My
but
team did
not just
absolutely garbage.
NFL games that were like,
Right.
whoa.
I actually don't
Had
understand.
a lot of mixed feelings. Welcome, Disgruntled. We have another guest here on the League of the Wings.
Hi, Josh. How's it going?
Who are you again?
I am your long lost friend from 1925.
Friend.
Yeah. I time traveled and somehow you're still the same age as I met you with.
I know. It's amazing.
But
honestly.
in this episode,
Speaking of 1925, what was going on during that year? You ask. Well, I don't know. I wasn't born there, thank God.
thankfully, very thankfully. So I'm having Josh on this episode of League of the Wings. The first couple of times we talked about mental health, talked about climate change, and of course, way back I interviewed him. But I just wanted to continue this conversation of kind of talking about, I don't know, like, I guess more important topics where there's not much of a conversation of, or just lack thereof. I guess that's the same idea. But today I wanted to tackle race. And what is race, and what does race mean to you?
I can't be on this podcast anymore. There should be two white men up here discussing.
Yes, and they have to be 50 plus years old too.
Yes.
Exactly.
Exactly.
This is kind of meant for more of a conversation piece too. Kind of wherever the conversation takes us. Way back, way back, a couple of years ago, we talked about during the entire George Floyd incident when that happened, and we kind of discussed about kind of how you were raised, kind of how you were affected, kind of how you grew up, and yeah, how, I guess kind of the first question I have to kind of start off this conversation is from that point on, and from that point of kind of like the arc of George Floyd, and I guess kind of when it became less trendy to talk about like that effects, how do you think society has changed since that point, for the better, for the worse, if at all?
That's a very good question. I think what happened was a very necessary step, because a lot of times when I'm thinking about race relations and sorry, I just had to close the window. We're in Philly, so there's a lot of background noise. But you know, when we're talking about, or when I'm thinking about race relations and, you know, how far have we come and how far have we got to go, I try and look at it from the long game. I think what happened in 2020 after George Floyd and all the riots and police brutality was at the forefront of the conversation, at least the collective conversation. I think, you know, Black people are in a very long process of processing the pain that we've gone through and the pain our ancestors have gone through. And we're still holding on to it very, very tightly. And what happened in 2020 was just a byproduct of that. And, you know, it doesn't help that we're in a society that, or a country that is not willing to really look at the past, its own history, in a very critical and introspective way to understand where things have gone wrong and how they've, you know, disenfranchised large groups of people in the course of its own upbringing. You know, I think, you know, the anger Black people are feeling is just a byproduct of that. And I think it's just one step of many that the community might have to go through in terms of getting to some sort of end goal. I don't know what that's going to look like. You know, society is already developing in a way that I don't think anyone could have predicted. I mean, like any generation of people can say that, though. It's like, did the people in the 1800s know, like, we were going to be sitting at this table today, like, recording through a black box, right, to capture sound? Like, I don't know what the world is going to look like in a post, like, I don't even know how to, like, process, like, a post-race society, or, like, a post discriminate, like, I don't know what that's gonna look like. I don't know how we're gonna get there, but I like to think we're on a journey to that point where we can all kind of coexist peacefully. And you know, I think the events of 2020 were just one step in that direction.
You brought up like a really good point too that like I wanted to like talk about too, is kind of like the generational trends, I guess. And it's kind of interesting to see kind of like the trend that we're in, because I feel like we have the obvious ideas of like generation is going to replace the next generation. Like our generations, that's going to be the next world leaders, that's going to be like controlling the world in the next like 50 70 years, 50 probably. But it's just interesting to think of where our society would be at in another 50 years, because I feel like our generation is a lot more like open-minded, I guess. Yeah. A lot more loving, a lot more like focused on human rights, and it's going to be interesting to see how that is going to affect politics in the future. Right. Kind of replacing, if we replace the old man, like the old like white man in office and stuff, or if that's going to continue with like some like oddballs, like some senators like son is going to go up and just keep doing the same cycle, repeat the same cycle, or if we're going to see a more of a complete like 180 or a more complete like switch in the society that we live in today, due to our generation kind of being more open-minded. Like that was a long-winded like kind of explanation, but I guess, do you think in 50 years time we're going to, or I guess how do you think our generation is going to affect affect like society in a whole, particularly just in the race department? Yeah.
I don't know, because I mean, at least in America, I think we are growing up in a time that's a lot more accepting of alternative lifestyles and people who look a certain way. But at the same time, I think it's also important to acknowledge that we live in a bubble, and just because people in our bubble are operating a certain way doesn't necessarily mean everyone's thinking that way, or everyone is. At least, I don't know, because, I mean, you look at how Trump got elected, and it's like, before that point, you know, a lot of people who maybe had some racist sentiments might not have been as overt or as public about the way they felt, but I think him getting elected proves that there are a lot of people who are willing to excuse that part of his personality or just agree with that type of ideology. I think those people still exist, and those people are still having children and educating their children a certain way. I am positive that, because the way I see it, like, it's not an issue. There's so many issues within the main overarching issue that need to be solved, and that's gonna make it in terms of how we get to where we need to be or where we want to be, it's going to be a long game, and it's going to take generation by generation of people being more and more open, people breaking out of their bubbles. You know, I think America is going to become more diversified as time goes on. I don't know about the rest of the world, but, you know, we're living in America, so I can speak to that perspective. America is eventually going to become more and more diverse. I think as time goes on, priorities are going to change. People are going to feel differently. We're already experiencing, again, a very, very open, at least our generation, like you said, is very, very open. So I think we're moving in the right direction. I don't know. We might still be talking about the same issues we're talking about today in 50 years. But I'm hoping there will at least be a platform for Black people to speak on these issues. And I hope there will be more Black people in places of power to not only have a voice, but be supported by the system and people and voters, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
I agree with that. And what kind of makes me hopeful for the future for that kind of generational like switch where it's, I mean, like this is what I'm going to like bring up. It's polar opposite kind of, because it's like in a different country, but like of kind of weeding out like the, I don't know, like the more racist, the more like kind of those types of people with Ukrainian president. And I know there's a lot of stuff with obviously with like Ukraine and Russia right now. I don't want to dive into that. That's like an entirely new podcast. That's so much that we could dive into too. But even though I don't know how to pronounce his name, and
Zelensky, the president.
Yeah, and I know he's white too, but just how he interacts and runs like Ukraine right now is something that is very hopeful too. That can kind of maybe inspire more people in America too to kind of run their country, or run like when we built that, like when we start like switching into like the higher ups. Yeah. And what I saw a TikTok too that I saw the guy was like analyzing it, and like the president of Ukraine is like fighting within the world and within the war, like he's on the battlefield within the war and within the invasion. Like he has a bulletproof vest on, he has an AK, like he's just fighting within battle. And even before that, like too, he was trying to make Ukraine a more diplomatic country too. Yeah. But like that's the first president to fight in a war since George Washington, like of a country. Yeah. And also he like refused, like US, all of like the surrounding countries like said like, we can get you like the hell out of like Ukraine, just take it. Yeah. And he just said, no, I'm fighting for like my country, I'm fighting for this. And I know it's two completely different worlds, and because it's Ukraine, it's a different country, it's across the ocean, but like that little like aspect, I don't know, I just like how he is running Ukraine, and that makes me hopeful that we can also change in that way too. But I don't know how we would root out those like people that have just want to spread hate and want to spread hate to people, and I just don't really know how we as a society can switch from that too.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point to bring up. And yeah, I mean, that just goes back to like, where do we want to be and what do we want our world to look like? Because I think no matter how much you try and change the sentiments of the people who exist in the country, we can't deny that the systems that exist within the country itself, that the country depends on to run as it is now, are built on a lot of racism, a lot of white supremacist ideology, and I don't know. We talk about reform, but I mean, when is it time to like completely break the wheel and just start over? And that's a hard call to make, and it's also a call that not a lot of people are a fan of. But again, like, America does not have to look the way it does. There's always a better way. There's always a different solution that we can take in terms of how we're running the country and how we want to treat the people within our own country. And it's important I think the most important thing is for people to learn to be okay with being wrong. I think people need to be more open-minded. I think people need to be okay with having conflicting information or conflicting ideas, enter their sphere of consciousness, whatever. I think the more we encourage people to just exist and accept other people's differences, I think the more willing we will be to listen to the complaints that, not only the Black community is having, but all POC, all men, women. Like, I think the more open-minded we're able to be, I think the more we can listen and really analyze what is going on, what is the issue, what needs to be rooted out, who needs to be rooted out, and where do we need to go from there. I think those are the biggest things we need to focus on.
I agree. We filmed a podcast before this for Babellion,
Mm-hmm.
and we were talking about the movie King Richard. I guess this is going to spoil a little bit because it's being released Thursday, and the podcast that we just recorded is going to be released Friday.
Mm-hmm.
But that movie, we were discussing how it did a really good job of telling an African American family point of view of growing up in America, and just within sports as well.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm trying to word this because I want to lump like sports into it as well, but
Right.
I guess I want to say more pop culture. I just don't want to be more. I want to like narrow it down where it's not as general or as vague as pop culture as a whole.
Yeah.
But is pop culture? I guess we can focus zero in on movies particularly and or music. Is it changing? Are you seeing more change within the last 5 years going in the direction? In that direction within.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I think even when we're talking about as a film major, like what type of movies we're seeing and representation, I think there is I think the entertainment industry is moving in a direction where representation is, I don't want to say cool or trendy, but I think having a diverse cast is a lot more popular than it was certainly like 10 years ago. And I think that alone gives me a sense of hope. Now, when we're talking about representation, all representation isn't good representation. So, I don't know. It's even if like it's like two steps forward, one step back. I think the stories that are coming out and the people telling those stories and the people who are being cast in those stories, I think, again, we're headed in a direction where people are going to be looking more for POC actors. People are going to be looking more to have their films be represented properly. I think, again, it just comes down to like who's at the top and what do they look like. Because if like Hollywood right now is mostly ran by white men. I'd say that might be bold of me to say. I don't know.
Mhm.
You can fact check me, but I would say that with like 99% confidence. And it's like, how do you even break into that industry when the people who are controlling what stories are being told, how big of a budget those people get, when they're not people of color, it's like, how authentic can our stories be? And authenticity matters, of course. So it just becomes, I don't know, it just becomes a thing of making sure the people who are telling these stories are telling it authentically and have the either the people or the background necessary to back it up.
Yeah,
That's what I'd say.
I agree, and I'm just looking up quickly. Yeah, the 3 out of the 4 people who were going over the Oscars, the directors were white, and King Richard. This actually like brings up a good point too, with main like 99% of directors being white within it, because King Richard, the director was African American, and you can see that you can see how much better it is, or how much better of a story it is,
right,
coming from him opposed to a white man. Because I feel like if a white man did this or like directed it, it would be not entirely different, but I feel like we wouldn't have the perspective that we have with an African American director. And because that just goes in general too with anything, like it's almost impossible to tell a story if you haven't experienced it yourself.
Yeah.
And more time and time again, we've been seeing black stories told by white men within Hollywood, and it not coming out great. Like, because they haven't personally experienced it themselves. Yeah, you can do research. Yeah, you can go as far as interviewing African Americans and just diversifying, but that can I feel like that can only do so much. And you actually have to experience it. It's like I couldn't tell, obviously, as good of a story, or a good of, not story, but good of like a retelling of experience of a black person growing up in America comparatively to a white person. I can tell the white version better. Yeah. Because I am white. It's like, you're trying to
what you know.
Yeah. Like, I feel like it's almost as simple as that too. And it's like, I don't know like other comparisons other than that you can think of. It's like, I don't know, like growing up in a military family comparatively growing up to family and like I don't even know, like I can't, I mean, like you understand like what I'm trying to get at. But I just think I think we need more representation within, or African Americans need more representation within the higher ups. And once we achieve that as a society, then I feel like our society is going to go like that. Right. And it's just crazy to see too, because like the director of King Richard, I need to say his name to give him recognition, but Ronaldo Green. He's a beautiful like director. Like he's such a good director too. And it's just crazy to think of how many opportunities that we're losing out on just because our society is racist. Yeah. Like, imagine if he wasn't able to get to the top, be a director, and direct this movie, and or direct in general. Like, it would just be a completely different shift within the movie world. And it's just really cool to see that he was able to make it to the top. And we need more people like that too. Yeah. Elevating the right voices is definitely important. And like I said, I think we're moving in the right direction. But again, it just comes down to
who's telling the story? You know, how credible is the source? Cuz if I don't know, like for example, well, I don't know if this is a good example, but at least it's somewhat interesting. Like Moonlight is a story about a gay black man, right? The director of Moonlight isn't gay. He's straight. He's still black though. And I guess that brings up an interesting point about intersecting identities and I don't know how, because there's always a gray area, right? And it also comes down to how truthful you're being and how much you're willing to listen and be open-minded to different kinds of stories. Because Barry Jenkins tells a very compelling, very beautiful story, despite not belonging to the same identity of the character that he's talking about. But he's able to... There's no doubt that being a black man helped him sort of understand or fill in the gaps between the two different identities and still tell a truthful, authentic story. And there's no doubt he probably had, you know, people of that background to consult when he was preparing to or writing the movie itself. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I guess I want to like preface too that it's not impossible as a director to tell a different story like from a different perspective, like Barry Jenkins. But you have to do the work. You have to do the work to interview people from that perspective that you're trying to tell a story from. And you have to at least have people from that perspective in the writing room. And yeah, you said it perfectly. Like I don't want to like repeat what you just said too, but yeah, I just feel like, and in general, I feel with these Hollywood movies, it's a white director with a white supporting cast within the writing room. And yeah, I don't know.
And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Because I think there definitely can be a lot of bitterness towards the way things are right now. And I think it's just important to have a wider variety to authentically reflect the world that we're living in. And I don't want to discourage white people from making movies. I mean, well, that's an interesting point. Like, how do you feel as a white man? I mean, I don't want to ask like a pointed question, but do you ever feel like you're taking away opportunities from other people?
That's a very, very good question. I'm going to reset the camera and I'm going to answer it.
That's fine.
Wait, I don't know why I fucking clapped.
Sometimes I feel like as a man alone, like I'm taking up space in a field that is not dominated by a lot of women, and it's like, oh, I'm just another I'm like adding to the issue technically, right?
Yeah.
But
I mean, I do fear that because I don't know, I fear that like when I'm going up for a job and interviewing for a job, being both a white male too, like I worry about that from a male perspective and being a white person perspective as well. I do worry about like, all right, so I have my resume cover like letter, I go in an interview and I do good. I have good like skills and stuff, but then someone of color and or a woman comes in better qualified than I am, has a better interview than me, and then I still get a job, or I still get that job. It doesn't have to be necessarily the person of color being that much better. I think, I guess a better example is if we're both evenly qualified, and and the person of color has a few steps ahead of me, that they should be hired comparatively to me. I would rather, obviously I would want to be like hired nonetheless because it's a job, but like I don't want it to be due to my color. I want it to be due to like my skill level and my job. And I would, on a just a moral standpoint, I wouldn't feel right taking that job from the person of color. Like I wouldn't want that to happen. I would want the person of color who's better qualified to do the job than I am, because like that makes the most sense within the workforce to push society forward. Yeah. Like I'm just afraid that that's going to happen in the future, that I don't want it to happen. And I guess there are many examples of that. I guess the job is like the one that came to my mind too. But like I don't want I'm afraid of taking that opportunity away from people just because of the color of my skin and stuff, or just the color of my skin. And I don't know. I think it's a shitty thing that our society has that mentality. And I don't know. Like I want to go up in my field of work. I want to go up in like post editing. I want to like be in the realm of like Hollywood, like being in the top of the elite and stuff. And I don't know. I just want to be there too. But yeah, I just don't know. The entire thing sucks too, because like I just don't want the color of my skin stopping other people from having opportunities that could do the job better than I would. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of out of our control at the same time. At least when I'm thinking of it from like the male perspective, I can't change my gender, right? But I mean, you can still be smart about it. Like Scarlett Johansson, who took that role in Ghost in the Shell, I think, which she shouldn't have done. She should have let an Asian American or somebody from an Asian background take that role on rather than her do that. You know, it's like you also have to know, I think, when it's not it's not your story to be told, when it's not your territory, when it's not your expertise. I think you need to be able to have the humility and the maturity to recognize that, take a step back, and let somebody who knows it better do that job. Because otherwise you're going to make a fool of yourself. And so, you know, when we're talking about representation, it's like even like Brad Pitt was an executive producer on Moonlight. It's like that is a form of activism that I think anybody who's in the majority as opposed to the minority, that is a really powerful form of activism that you can take. It's just use your status, use your power, use your money in any way you can to elevate people who can tell those stories and who can offer that perspective.
Yeah, I guess I was like more thinking along the lines of like post-production editing, where it's still like a creative control, but I'm more often than not following like the director's opinion, the producer's opinion, screenwriters, etc., adding in my creative elements too. But I was also thinking that like too, when I was like, I want to reach up to like the highest level of editing, get up in Hollywood and stuff. Yeah, I want to get to that level, and like you said with Brad Pitt, I want to kind of do what Brad Pitt does, like show and elevate other people around me of color, of minority, and the people who are in their minority. And like if I do get lucky and or fortunate enough to be in one of those higher up positions and influential somehow, I don't even know how I would do that as an editor, but I would want to, like if I'm editing a movie, that I can't really tell because I haven't experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to interview. I want to not necessarily interview because that's more formal, but I want to have like conversations with people. I want to have other people of color, or if I'm telling like a woman's story, like I want like people in that editing room who is also in that minority too, like overseeing my head, and I want to create like, I don't know, like a kind of environment that Brad Pitt, I guess we can't really like tell kind of the environment that Brad Pitt kind of created, but from the outside perspective, it looks like it was at least a healthy one. Yeah. And I kind of want to be like that stepping stone where I'm not the main focus of it, but I'm telling the correct story.
Right.
Like I want to tell a story correctly. I want to tell it how it is and not how it's going to make millions too.
Right.
And that's why I love documentary film too, because I love telling people's perspectives and stories and stuff from their point of view. And documentary work is not, you can't really make, sorry, I was just checking to see if I'm in frame, but like documentary work is not, you can't really make millions within that field. I mean, you can, but it's a lot harder in that field. But I just want to be able to tell stories at my own time. Like, yeah. I don't know, that's kind of how I see it too.
Yeah.
Okay, kind of shifting. Kind of shifting fields, because we were kind of talking in generalization with the U.S., how society can go as a whole.
Do better. America.
Yeah, come on, America. Movies, kind of pop culture aspects of it. But this is kind of where I want to ask more personal questions of exactly how you think, or like just what your thoughts on this topic is. But what are your thoughts on the N-word? Obviously like white people can't say it, but I guess more of like kind of the usage of the N-word, because there's a lot of different ways it's used. And I guess kind of we can narrow it into a certain point, but kind of like, is it okay for a white person, if it's reading from text from us, like referencing a song and saying it with, like, if it's a title of a song, that white person saying that, is it okay for them to say in that context? And or I guess different races saying the N-word, because of, I know that some other ethnicities also use it, and it's kind of like an iffy topic. I'm not saying that other ethnics use it like as strongly as from the African American community, but kind of what are your thoughts on that? Because I feel like it's kind of that like kind of topic is
pretty controversial.
Yeah, controversial. I mean, but like kind of up to the individual, I guess, of how they kind of view that word. How do you view that word?
I don't care. I don't care. I don't think it is worth the mental energy that some people give it. There's obviously, like, again, like you said, I think it's pretty it comes down to the individual. I think there's a lot of ground rules that black people can agree on in terms of the N-word. Like, don't say it if you're not black, right? But I mean, there's like nuances that some, black people might be a little more with. Like, my thing is just, if you can avoid saying, if you don't have to say the word, don't say it, because there's no reason to. It's not that necessary. If you're reading, like, oh my god, I remember one time I was in high school and we were reading To Kill a Mockingbird, and again, grew up in a area that was mostly populated by white people, unfortunately. So I was in an English class with mostly white people, having to hear them recite certain parts of the book that use the N-word. And I remember feeling very uncomfortable in class anytime I heard it. And I haven't really, like, come to a stance on whether that's okay. Like, if you're reading it, or obviously, like, movie context is different. Context matters regardless, right? Like, if you're doing it for a film, or you're doing it for, I don't know, some sort, the telling a story, or I don't know, it just depends. And yeah, my thing is, if you don't need to say it, don't say it. Did my teacher have to say the N-word in that English class? She probably could have just skipped around that, right? Like, just for the sake of, you know, black people in the room who might feel a certain type of way about it. I think that would have been, you know, just read the room. Like, be aware of who you're around, what you're around. You know, the fact that people might be okay with this, people might not be okay with this. That's how I feel. Yeah. As for, like, other ethnic groups using the N-word, that does happen. Like I was telling Trey that other night in our conversation, like, I've known Hispanic people, Middle Eastern people who use the N-word when I was growing up, and I didn't develop a strong enough sense of self to say anything about it. I think I let it slide. I think now, knowing who I am and being a little more confident in myself, I don't think that'll slide with me, because the problem with using the N-word for me is a lot of times it's just another way of people accessing and taking from black culture when they have no stake in it to begin with. And we already have to deal with that so much, you know, in the entertainment industry, or with slang, you know, people taking from African American culture and not really giving it proper dues. It's like there's plenty of other POC communities who are very protective of who calls them what, and, you know, what aspects of their culture reach the mainstream. I think other ethnic groups are very good at, you know, gatekeeping their own culture when they need to. Black people have been pillaged, and we've had so much taken from us from the very beginning of our history here in America, that it's just like, knowing that history, myself, Joshua Free, as a black person, I'm like, I do not approve of people outside of the community using that word when we've already lost so much. I don't think that's a privilege that can escape our community. As for who gets to say it within the black community, I don't care. Use it if you want to. Don't use it if you don't want to. It's up to you. But
I think that's beautifully said. And I always, like, just from different, like, ethnics, like, saying, when I hear people from different ethnic ethnicities, yeah. Am I correct with saying ethnic groups? Like, is that,
ethnicities,
okay.
ethnic groups.
Okay. I always felt off about it, and I always wondered. Well, I guess my feeling was more of a curiosity of, like, I feel like there's something off with that. Like, but I never asked that question of different ethnicities, like, being able to say the N-word or not, because I always heard it, but I'm like, that doesn't feel right, because it's, like, not a part of their history. Right. I've always been meaning to ask someone about that, like an African American, about that, of what their thoughts are on that, and it's just interesting to hear, like, your opinion on it. And yeah, I feel like, at least as a society, I mean, there's pockets, like, there's obviously, like, pockets everywhere, but you can't totally escape it. But, like, a general consensus that the N-word is a bad thing to say. I had a few other questions to ask too, but because like I'm trying to think about the when we went over the George Floyd situation and that kind of like interview, because like I don't want to overlap with the same questions that I had then, because like I want to
Bring something new to the table.
Yeah.
Make it spicy. It's fine.
Yeah.
If you ask whatever you want to ask.
I'm just trying to think of good questions too.
Yeah.
See, I wanna ask like how was it like growing up? But I know I asked that question before, and I'm trying to think of a more focused answer than how was it like growing up as a black person. But I feel like that's very general take of it. I'm trying to think. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I can answer that question again if you want me to.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you want to answer it again, but I guess we can narrow it. I guess let's start off with that, and we can take it into different paths.
Yes.
Of it.
I mean, so I am black. I grew up black.
Wait, you're
been
black.
that way. Been that way since day one. So yeah, I can't remember what I said in the George Floyd Zoom, but I do remember the first time I ever the first time I ever mentally processed that I looked different than other people was when I first moved to New Jersey in the 3rd grade. And I literally remember walking into my 3rd grade class and being like, this like feeling of just being an outsider. I remember connecting with that very, very strongly, and just looking around the room and seeing that no one really looked like me, especially because when I was still living in New York, there were a good amount of black kids that were in like kindergarten through 2nd grade. And so when I moved to New Jersey, it was like a bit of a culture shock, I think, even if I didn't really have the experience or language to really like acknowledge that it was a culture shock. That's what it was. It was a culture shock. And past that point, I think it really just became a game of assimilation for me. Because again, when you're not growing up, and this is why, going back to our early point, representation matters so much. I probably brought that up in the George Floyd interview too, because representation matters so much. Because when, like, I'm just like, man, like if I had more black people around me growing up, I think I would have saved myself a lot of social trauma. Like, I don't even know what to call it. It just would have been, I would have had a much more easier time, because high school, middle school, like growing up, it's the demo version of real life, right? It's so cliquey, and you're so aware of who you are and how you're presenting and how you want to present to the world in such a gross, uncomfortable way. And being in high school while being one of the only black people in my high school was not the best experience. And looking back now, there was so many things that were said to me on an almost daily basis that might not have been the kind of discrimination my ancestors were facing in like post or pre-1960s, or I don't know, anytime before when I was born, right? Like, I wasn't being called the N-word by white people walking down to class, but there were microaggressions. There were plenty of comments, plenty of jokes, right, surrounding my race. And a lot of times, in order to fit in, which is why I say it was a game of assimilation, I had to almost play a role for white people and be a sort of caricature of myself, just to feel like I belonged. And I don't want to say that's entirely, that is a condition that is also influenced by the person I am, because I'm pretty sensitive. I was always sensitive to other people. I was always very concerned about how I was coming across to other people. So I think assimilating became more important for me just because of that. Because there were black people in my high school who I think were very true to themselves, even there were like isolated black circles in my high school who didn't really interact with a lot of white people. So you like even when you're a black person growing up in a predominantly white community, there is a diaspora of experiences that you can be having depending on your own like mindset and energy, right? So I think I'm gonna stop talking there and let you say some things if you have to say anything.
Oh my god. Don't ever worry about like quote unquote ranting or talking too much or like worrying about what I have to say. Just if you want to rant, just rant. With those microaggressions that you received from white people, and I guess this is a multi-question answer.
Multi-question.
Like
heard that word.
Or multi-question question, not answer, but I just want to simplify it so that it's not like overwhelming at once. First, I guess the first answer with growing up in a predominantly white, I guess second half of elementary school, throughout middle school, throughout high school. How has that changed from now? I guess we can still see a pocket like with the area we're living in. It's predominantly black, but a couple blocks down you have a primarily white campus.
Yeah.
I guess what are your overall, or how do you necessarily feel about that? That's like That's
a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I was just like, that may be, there's a lot to unpack there, and however you feel comfortable like unpacking it, that's okay too. And with those microaggressions that you received from white people, do you still see those microaggressions when interacting with white people today? And if so, is it more often? Is it about the same? And I guess how do you what is your reaction, or how do you deal with it differently from when you were in high school, from now when you do receive microaggressions and or any other like racist remarks or racist just things that affect you or that people say?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I want to preface by saying it's not always white people. It's not always white people who, are saying these suggestive comments about you. Sometimes it's your own people. Sometimes it's Hispanics, Latinx people. Sometimes it's Asian people from the Asian community. It's just stereotypes and ignorance, and I think now I'm a lot more willing to just like distance myself from the comment and the person who said it, and just be like, okay, clearly you're X type of person who thinks something like that is okay. And I haven't exactly gotten to a point, because I'm not a very confrontational person. If I can avoid it, I will. So I don't think, it depends. It depends on what's being said and who's saying it, because the problem with microaggressions is that they're microaggressions, right? It's like if somebody's walking down the street and they call you the N-word, I can be like, hey, don't call me the N-word. That's not good. Right? When somebody makes a comment about your hair, it's like, well, you're not necessarily being rude to me, but this comment is making me feel uncomfortable. Like, I literally went back home this past winter, right, to work at my job back home, And we had like this Christmas party, and somebody at the Christmas party told me that my hair looks like a chia pet or something like that. And I was like, and we're friends. Me and this person are like friends. We've known each other for like a long time. And I'm like, it's like, what do I even say? Because then I have to deal with all this emotional fallout after the fact where it's like, should I have said something? Should I have corrected their behavior? Like, how do I even bring that up in a space that is mostly white people to begin with? It's like, and this is the terrible nature of microaggressions and racism in a post Jim Crow society where, you know, there is not overt legislation or overt, clear to see like negative attitudes towards certain ethnic groups, right? A lot of the racism that's going on in our society today is beneath the surface. And when it's beneath the surface, it becomes this thing where you can't really talk about it, because if you try to talk about it, it's hard for people to understand because it's not so clear, but it still makes you feel all of the weight of it, but you can't express it. It's hard to express it and address it, so then it becomes this thing that's internal, and you have to stew over it and sit in it and sit with it, and that is not a great feeling to have. And so now I think the most important thing for me is to just have a strong enough sense of self to recognize that I don't have to play a role just because people want to make comments that come off a certain way or just feel disingenuous or heartless or not considerate. It's just, I'm only in control of my thoughts, my actions, and who I am. And this person is making a comment from a place that probably isn't very educated. What matters is that I love myself in my beautiful... Your thing.
Yeah.
Stop recording.
I didn't want to interrupt you.
You should have interrupted me.
Well, yeah.
It's fine. I have to pee anyway, so. Oh, fuck. I don't remember where I left off.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that. I'm sorry. I just didn't want to
It's okay.
interrupt you. But you were saying how you're... I don't know how to word how kind of your thought process on when you do hear a microaggression.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. So the most important thing for me is to just, retain my sense of personhood and really just distance myself from the person who made the comment and whatever perspective they're coming from, and just be like, all right, like you're going in one direction, I'm gonna go this way. Like, clearly, I mean, it depends though, because if it's like an inner circle issue, right, like then I have to handle it a little differently. But I would hope that, I'm not friends with people who are making comments like that, because I wouldn't be. Yeah, but with people who it's the line for me, and because there are black people who will tell you straight to your face seconds after you say something like that, hey, that's not cool, you can't say that to me, right? So it's all about where you draw the line, I think, and how much you're willing to put up with, right? For me, it's like I draw the line when I put trust in you to not say those things like that, and you say shit like that. When that line is crossed, then we need to have a conversation. Otherwise, I love who I am. I'm fine with who I am. You can bring your attitude into that corner over there. I'm gonna leave the room and keep going with my life.
I think you pretty much answered this question I'm about to ask. With what you just said. But I guess if you have anything pertaining, I guess, more general is I feel like, well, just from the conversations that we had in the future, or in the future, in the past, you're kind of speaking on, or kind of get a sense of the amount of weight kind of African Americans do hold of. I'm so fucking bad with words. I'm trying to form this sentence, but with dealing with microaggressions and or racists, with that on their shoulder of saying something, not saying something. I guess, how do you think you're affected by that? Because you just said of kind of your personal, how you react to it, and I guess like how much is that kind of weight of saying something, or kind of in a room full of white people, you're the only black person, and you're the only one that can represent that
your
side
entire
of you.
people.
Yeah, your entire people.
Yeah.
I guess kind of that weight of that, of just that in general. I guess, how does that affect you on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of like when I don't know, you're talking to someone and you say the wrong thing and then you like panic. Like either in the moment, you probably panic in the moment, and like once you like say bye to the person, you're like, shit, I shouldn't have said that. Damn, do they think I'm like crazy? Like, and like all the like mental processes or whatever. It's kind of like that, except the good thing is most of the time you're probably able to sort of move on after something like that happens. I think the issue when it's so attached to who you are is that, one, it won't be the first time you experience something like that. Two, it is because of something you really can't change. And I think those are two things that are hard to reconcile with, because I think there's a lot of bitterness in the black community towards white people, which I completely understand and sympathize with and feel, and that's the byproduct of not just dealing with microaggressions, but all of it. It's like it's a constant thing that just comes up. Sometimes it's better at certain points in your life, sometimes it's worse in some moments, but it's just a constant knowing, a constant awareness, a constant need to explain and justify your own existence, right? It's like I can't walk out of my house, right, without somebody making a comment about my hair. So it's like, and it's not like that's bad, right? Because people are just being nice about the way I look. But, you know, sometimes people don't know how to navigate those types of conversations, and people get hurt. And so, I don't know. It's unavoidable in a really shitty way. But the best you can do is just make peace with it and just move on, I think. Because it's not, we can't, there's no going back. Yeah. Sorry to end on such a grim note. But
yeah. And I feel like there's a difference between your hair looks like a chia pet and your hair looks nice today. But yeah. I guess I don't really have that many questions left, and do you want to wrap it up here?
We can wrap it up here.
Wait, okay. Sorry. Last question. Going back to the temple question. Yeah. I guess this can go a couple ways too. I guess how do you view this, literally, I feel like there's a line in the road, a couple blocks up, like Temple's campus and this like everything around Temple. I guess, what are your thoughts on that, and how do you kind of, I guess, interact with it on a day-to-day basis?
I think it's a little, well, this goes back to the topic that we were just talking about. It's a little hard because I think it's important to acknowledge, being off campus, we live in an area that's predominantly black, and the environment is not that pleasant, right? There's high rates of violence, high rates of crime, and these are just people trying to live their lives. But I think once you understand the history and how, from the very beginning, black people in this country were almost set up to fail in a way that has placed a lot of our community in places like this where, they're at a disadvantage. There aren't a lot of opportunities to move up. And so it's hard because then it's like I walk on campus and I see all these people live at Vantage in the view, and I can't be mad at them because it's like, of course your parents don't want you living off campus. It's a dangerous area. We can't just pretend that it's not dangerous. But it's like, I feel a certain level of anger on behalf of others because that option maybe isn't available to them, or I don't know. I think it's just important to recognize, being a Temple student, especially being a Temple student, I think it's important to recognize that the Temple campus is a very insular bubble, and you are already taking up space in an area that is populated by people who already don't have as much access as you do, right? It's a privilege that we get to come here to a place like this and, have an education and do all these things and feel safe and feel at peace. It's like, it's not, like you said, you go 5 blocks down, you're not having the same experience. So I just think it's important for Temple students to just know the history, know the community, understand what's going on, so you're not just living in a bubble and just completely unaware. Because then it's like, at least for me, it's like, what's the point? You're just I think you're missing out on an opportunity to learn and understand and grow from that.
How do you think Temple is building that community and focusing on the outer edges of the campus, and I guess not outer edges, like outside of Temple?
Yeah.
Because I remember, like, in orientation, they're like, be respectful of, like, the outer community.
Yeah.
Don't throw parties, like, clean up your trash and stuff. And that's all I kind of remember, or that's kind of like the last thing that I heard that kind of Temple is, or said about that kind of, or said about that topic, or said about just talking about the community in general. How do you think Temple is with handling kind of the community outside of it? Outside of its campus.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if I want to say Temple has done the best they can, but I think there's only so much the university can do, and a lot of times it comes down to the students who are here and our attitudes and what we're doing and how we're treating the environment that we live in. Yeah, that's kind of outside of Temple's control in a way. But I also don't know if they're encouraging I mean, they are, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess it's. I don't know.
I don't know
think
if I know enough.
Yeah. I was just going to say I think you said it perfectly, and that's how I should have asked the question.
Yeah.
'Cause I was thinking in my head, but I couldn't form it to words. But I guess like there's only so much that Temple can do, and it does fall in the hands of Temple students, and but I feel like Temple can do more.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically all basically what you said, and I feel like that's really what you or I or anyone else can really say, and it's I guess it's not really our job to like
that's true.
work on that, but yeah, I don't know. I just think it's interesting to see how Temple interacts with the city. But yeah, we've been going through it to an hour and 17 minutes. We can. Unless if there's anything, is there anything else that you want to touch on or anything that you want to say? Final thoughts?
No, I am all good. Just follow Babellion Studios on Instagram.
I don't know why I freaking didn't say if you want to have anything to plug. That's the second fucking podcast that I did in a row. Like last week, I always start these fucking podcasts is like, do you want to plug anything?
Yeah.
And second, I'm fucking...
You messed up.
I'm used to Titus. Doing these podcasts with Titus where we just walk in and just start talking. Blame Titus. No,
I know. I blame Titus.
Yeah.
I'm going to call him after this.
Yes.
I'm going to be like...
We should both yell at him.
We should.
Yeah.
We should call him right now.
Yeah. Do you want to see if he picks up? Wait, he might be on and playing.
Do you think? See. League of the Wings guest. Surprise guest.
Wait. Are you calling him? Yeah, you call him.
Yeah, I'll call him.
He's probably more likely to pick up your phone call than mine. I say that he doesn't pick up.
He probably won't.
I think he's in.
He's got to be in the air.
Yeah, or just getting.
Or just getting there.
Yeah. Wait,
he's gonna be like, "Why did you call me?"
Yeah, he's in the same time zone, right?
I think so. He's only going to Michigan, right?
Yeah, I think that's in the same time zone. He's like, you fucking.
I don't think he's gonna answer.
It's like, you fucking bitch.
Damn.
Yeah. He's probably like either.
Yeah.
Because he said that his plane wasn't for another hour and a half at 6, so he probably boarded at like 7:30, and it's either at the airport or still in the air. So yeah.
He's probably thinking about how bad of a host he is.
Yeah. And how he probably needs to quit because of how bad he is. Because out of respect, I'd rather him quit than I fire him. Yeah. Do you want to replace him?
I would love to replace him. I feel like I'm doing such a great job.
Yeah. What's your knowledge on sports?
Oh.
Yeah.
I know so much about sports. Any sport in particular?
I don't know. I guess one of the big.
Not football.
Not football.
I mean, I can talk about football.
Yeah, let's talk about football because the Super Bowl just happened.
Of course, the Super Bowl.
This is your 2-minute sales pitch.
My sales pitch.
Yeah, your highlight reel.
Yes. So reasons why I'd be a great host for League of the Wings podcast. I've been an avid football fan since 2001 when I popped out, baby. I think my favorite team would have to be the Philadelphia Eagles.
Ooh.
Because they just have a lot of grit and drive and motivation to fly and soar through the sky like the Eagles they are. So I think that, there's nothing more important than having a great quarterback. And the Eagles have done that.
Yes.
They have a great quarterback, offensive lineup, defensive lineup. Can't forget about that defense. It is the Eagles have that locked. Nobody's getting through the wing guard. Am I right or am I right? So That was 2 minutes. I think.
Okay. That was one of the most beautiful sales pitches that I ever heard.
Stop.
Final question.
Oh my god.
If you answer this correctly, you get the job.
Okay.
And Titus is fired the next day.
I'm ready.
Or right now.
Ooh.
Whatever you choose. Because you are the co-host, and that'll be your first decision.
Yes.
What color is the Eagles football team oriented around?
Wow. Get a load of this guy. Now, Caleb, thank you for asking me such a difficult question. I'm struggling. Honestly, I have no words.
Well, you have to say the color of the team.
Huh?
You have to say the color.
Right.
It's
the color of the team.
I'll give you a hint. It's my favorite color.
Your favorite color. Good thing I know that. Am I right, guys?
Prove you're a good co-host and a good friend, because I need friendship on this podcast.
Of course you do, which is why I'd be such a good co-host, because I'm your friend, and friends know things about each other.
So what's the answer? You haven't named the color yet.
We've been going this long and I haven't named the color?
Yeah,
that's a little unbelievable, don't you think?
RGB. It's
RGB. It's one of those.
Yeah.
RGB. You didn't have to give me a hint. I know it.
Well, it's been right now. This question is more than your sales pitch.
Well, I'm just taking the time necessary to really process and give you an answer that's worthy of you as my friend and future co-host.
So say the color.
Oh, I didn't say it yet?
Yeah, just.
Oh, I thought I said it.
I
thought I said it. Did I not?
Middle of RGB.
Middle of RGB. You keep giving me hints as if I don't know it. That's really interesting. Do you not trust me?
No, I'm just. It's not hints. I'm just talking.
Okay. So you trust me?
Yeah.
So you think I'd make a good co-host?
Yeah.
You think I'd make a great co-host?
Yeah. You just have to say a color. It can be literally any color at this point.
I feel like you
can't name a color.
Me from.
I feel like you can't name a color.
That's a lot. You're throwing a lot of energy at me right now.
Look,
I'm just gonna say stop, energy. Go that way, and I'm gonna let it pass me this way, and instead I'm gonna be like, Caleb, take this love energy. See this in my hand? This is love. This is all the love that I have for you. This is everything that I want you to know. Don't laugh at my love. Are you kidding me? That's offensive. I'm offended right now.
A laugh is excitement laughter, because I have some good news for you.
What's the good news? Don't tell me I'm holding up all this love energy for nothing. What's the good news?
You got the job. Now, you see, he read around my questions. He did not answer them. But prolong them. And that's what I need within a co-host.
Exactly. See, that's because of this love energy right here. It's more than love. It is a connection. And when we let it flow, then see how I just felt him accept the love energy in my heart, and that's the kind of connection you need.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Thank you. You have the job.
You're welcome.
You can tell Titus whenever.
I will tell him right now.
Unless if you want to tell him. Like, if you need, like, I can do that too. If you don't want to. Because I am a co-host. But.
Listen, I'm gonna tell you this as your friend and your official co-host. I will fire him if you want me to, But
How?
I think that since you knew him longer and he was on the show already, it might be more convenient for you to fire him. But
How about you both do it? I say you're fired,
Mhm.
and you just laugh at him and make fun of him
Wow.
and demoralize him.
That sounds like a great arrangement. How about you fire him, laugh at him, and demoralize him, and I just don't be in the room?
But I need to know what you would do in awkward situations.
Well, obviously, I feel like I have proved in the past that I can handle an awkward situation. I mean, you remember that time that
Oh, I do. Don't get me started.
I know you remember. So I can make my way past an awkward situation. So I feel like that should really just speak to my abilities.
That was another test, and you passed. This man,
What
he
is
just keeps
with-
passing.
Somebody call up my high school principal and tell him that I'm not doomed
Yes.
to never pass high school.
This is.
That was a lie.
Yeah.
My principal never said that to me.
I wouldn't be surprised. I met your principal.
Yeah. I was pretty scared of my high school principal
Why?
because I fear authority. So I'm just scared of any authority figure, honestly. Not so much anymore because we grow and we recognize our fears and we look them in the eyes and we say, fear,
Go away.
go away.
This is why. Right here.
The energy.
Millions of views. I can smell it.
Millions.
Money. All right.
Oh, I was having so much fun.
All right, D. You want to watch Euphoria?
Yeah, let's watch Euphoria.
Bro.
Let's watch Euphoria.
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 You want to do a Euphoria recap? Not now. After we watch it, like next week.
Yeah.
When it's out of the news and everyone's over it.
We can do a Euphoria recap. We should do a retelling
Yes.
and only we act in it.
Can I be Cassie?
I guess you can be Cassie.
No, wait. Scratch that. I want to be Fez.
Can you do a good Fez impression though?
I have to relax my.
Yeah. No. Your process. Yeah.
Lexi. No, fuck. That was.
That was kind of good.
Yo, Lexi. No.
I
I
think
had
you
it
lost
before.
it.
Yeah.
You had it
I should have
before.
went with the first one.
You should have just.
It's like, yeah, Yo, Lexi, I'm madly in love with you. No, that's too fuckboy.
That sounds like you.
Yeah. The camera's gonna die.
It's
Bye.
not.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Oh wait, I guess we do have 2 minutes because you want fucking pee. But
Oh yeah.
all right.
Bye.
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 I'm sorry that I cut you off. Please don't be mad at me.
It's okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.